Welcome back. In today's explainer, we're diving into some truly fascinating historical source material to explore a night that fundamentally altered the course of history. Let's just set the scene right away. Imagine a night so still that the desert wind seemingly stopped mid-breath. We're standing in the middle of the 7th century, a time that historians and scholars widely describe as being draped in this profound, heavy spiritual darkness. It was a time so disconnected, it was as if humanity had almost entirely forgotten the very name of their creator. The texts describe this darkness as just incredibly deep. For a long silent period, this was the accepted reality of the world. But suddenly, out of nowhere, that long era of darkness was completely disrupted by an event that, according to historical accounts, literally and physically shook the foundations of the greatest empires on Earth. We are talking about a moment in time that shifted the entire trajectory of human civilization. So that brings us to a massive, intriguing question. What happens when the light finally breaks? Throughout this explainer, we're going to explore the historic source accounts of the night the Star of Ahmad rose. It's an amazing journey through ancient science and wonders documented in these texts, so let's jump right in.
Section 1. A vision of boundless light, from a desert home to the Byzantine palaces.
The sources introduce us to Aminah bint Wahb, a young widow who had just tragically lost her husband Abdullah while she was pregnant. But despite this heartbreak, she reported experiencing an unusually peaceful pregnancy. She didn't feel that typical, heavy physical burden at all. Instead, she felt as though she was carrying mercy itself. And on the night the birth began, accounts state she saw a magnificent light leave her humble desert home in Mecca. But its destination? It was immense. That light traveled all the way north, illuminating the massive stone palaces of Bosra in Syria, right in the heart of the Byzantine Empire. It was interpreted as a clear sign that this event wasn't just for one small town, but for a much, much wider world. Moving to Section 2, Superpowers Fall, the Sasanian Empire Trembles. Because right as that extraordinary quiet peace settled over Mecca, there was absolute, terrifying chaos erupting in the courts of the superpowers. The Persian Sasanian Empire was one of the two undisputed heavyweights of the world at the time. And according to the texts, on that exact night, the massive columns of the Persian palace in Ctesiphon began to shake with such incredible violence that 14 of its great towers completely collapsed. The sheer scale of this event sent absolute shockwaves through the highest levels of their society. It was signaling an unprecedented disruption. And the shockwaves didn't stop at physical architecture. For 1,000 years, think about that time frame. The sacred Magian fire had been kept burning continuously by their priests. It never went out. It was the absolute, undisputed center of their entire religion and political structure. It represented a literal millennium of unbroken tradition. Well, according to the sources, this wasn't just some coincidence. This 1,000-year fire was suddenly extinguished without wind or human hand. It was a profound physical declaration. Within the context of the historical narratives, it symbolized that systems built on the worship of men and the worship of fire were being dismantled, replaced by the worship of the one true God. Okay, Section 3. Nature reacts, water shifts, and idols fall. The texts actually describe massive environmental shifts happening simultaneously across totally different regions, almost as if the Earth itself was reacting to this birth. The Tigris River inexplicably overflowed its banks, while the Lake of Tiberias in Palestine, which had been full for centuries, suddenly dried up. But perhaps most profoundly, right in the center of Mecca at the Kaaba, 360 stone and wood idols that pagan Arabs knelt before were found fallen entirely on their faces. To early followers, this was highly symbolic. It represented the inevitable collapse of the old order. Section 4, The Star of Ahmad Rises, a celestial announcement. While the Earth and these massive empires were shifting, a totally frantic scene was unfolding in the streets of Mecca. The texts describe a Jewish scholar running through the city, shouting at the top of his lungs, desperately asking the locals if a child had been born that night. When people asked him, why are you acting so frantic? He pointed directly to the sky and declared, "The Star of Ahmad has risen." Now, here is where the deep historical context is absolutely crucial. For centuries, the people of the book had been reading prophecies in their own scriptures about a final prophet who would come after Isa, or Jesus. They knew the signs, they knew the timing, and they knew this specific star would mark his arrival. But the kicker noted in these sources is that they were expecting a savior from among the children of Israel.
Instead, this celestial sign appeared squarely over the desert of Arabia, distinctly signaling the arrival of the descendant of Ibrahim through the line of Ishmael.
Section 5. The Praised One. A smiling orphan is born. The intimate details of this birth in the historical accounts are just incredibly captivating. The sources note the absolute amazement of Aminah and the attending women, because when the baby was born, instead of letting out a cry of distress like you'd expect, he was smiling. Born an orphan, never having had the chance to see his father's face, he reportedly carried a distinct light on his forehead. And when his grandfather Abdul Muttalib held him, he immediately recognized this. He felt a special nur, this profound spiritual light, literally enter his own heart the second he held his grandson. Because of this overwhelming experience, Abdul Muttalib took the child to the Kaaba and gave him a very specific name, Muhammad, meaning the praised one. This was a highly uncommon name among his ancestors, but Abdul Muttalib chose it with brilliant intention. According to the text, he wanted this child to be praised by the Creator in the heavens and by all the people on earth. This really cemented the utter uniqueness of the child's identity from day one.
Section 6. The Enduring Light. 4 lessons for today.
Let's distill this whole thing down into 4 key takeaways from these sources. Number 1, light always breaks the darkness. The texts emphasize that no matter how incredibly dark the 7th century was, a light was prepared to guide humanity back. Number 2, falsehood is fragile. Just like those 360 idols falling and that 1,000-year fire going out, the narratives show us that established, powerful systems can collapse instantly. Number 3, the importance of the nur, or the sacred chain. This reminds readers that this light was viewed as a trust passed down from earlier prophets, connecting back to an ancient sacred chain. And finally, number 4, mercy over power. A vulnerable, smiling orphan in the desert shaking the greatest empires in the world illustrates that within these texts, real enduring strength comes from humility and a sincere connection to the Creator.
The overarching message these source texts convey to their readers is super clear. Do not let modern distractions make you forget the historical miracles meant to guide you. It's so easy to get caught up in the noise of today, but this historical narrative really serves to remind us to hold firmly onto that foundational spark of light and reflect on where it came from.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. Which of these miracles from the texts amazed you the most? Was it the falling towers in Persia, the 1,000-year fire being extinguished, or the arrival of a smiling orphan who would change the trajectory of the world forever? Keep reflecting, keep learning, and as always, thank you so much for diving into this incredible history with me.